Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Once a DJ. If you'd like to support the show, then head to onceadj.com/support to find out how you can help. If you'd like to get in touch with any feedback or suggestions, email onceadjpodcast@gmail.com. Once a DJ is produced by the good people at Remote Control. If you'd like to find out more about working with them, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk. Time for the show.
Nice.
Welcome back to Once a DJ. On this episode, we pick up where we left off with Dan Baxter, aka Peter Parker. We ended part 1 at the point of Dan touring with the Grand Central Band and Fingathing starting to take shape. In the words of Dan himself, let's go. So, at what point with the touring, was it whilst you were on tour that you realised, right, we need to do an album of this, or was it Mark that suggested it?
That's Mark. That's all Mark. That's his view. You know, I think what essentially the first thing that Mark took away was like him offering us that opportunity to do whatever it was that we were making up straight away. So it was like, okay, you're now going to go on the road, and you know, which was another new experience. But then like you and Sneak are going to do this thing. Or, you know, if you're willing, you're going to do this. And my mindset at that time was like, you know, Tony had dissed my beat. So, like, I was a bit like, right, when we go on, we're going to kick everyone's ass. No one's going to, you know. And so it was, and that was my mindset. And that was the response that happened. So, like, on face value, Mark was just like, what the fuck have I stumbled on here? These guys, like, this is gold. I don't even know what it is. We didn't know what it was, but the response from the crowds and that was mental. It was mental. And that's not just me saying that. Like I've just from my memory of the times, particularly in Scotland, you know, when we would go and all these people, because the gigs were big anyway. Like, you know, like Mark putting on this opportunity for people to see like Tony D, and he'd just done his album, and like YZ and that. And us, you know, it's crazy, but we didn't have a name yet or anything. It was just this Peter Parker and this Sneaky part of the band, and over those coming months, that was Mark was like, you know, you need to make some more. You need to make some more beats. I'm going to facilitate it so that you can do this. And I moved to Manchester, and then in my flat, all of a sudden, I had. Mark had this EMU32 sampler, MIDI keyboard. I had a sketchy old Atari ST that I got off my mate Dibbins that didn't even have the internal disk drive. It was so old. It had like a 5-inch floppy drive which plugged into it. I don't give a shit. You know, it was just like whatever I can do to get this happening. I don't know. And yeah, Sneak was like, I know how to use Cubase. I was like, this is meant to be. And that's all I was ever saying to him. You know, it's like, I don't know, like, how the hell have we gotten here? This is meant to be. This is, you know. And you know what? Sneak was like, I believe it too. You know, it wasn't just like me. I had to blag him into it. He was the most interesting person I'd ever met in my entire life, you know, and immediately. And I think maybe there was elements of that with me for him because we were so different. You know, we come from really different backgrounds. Yeah, like within months, it was like he started bringing around records. I had this sketchy little collection that I'd gotten together, and it didn't, like, at that time, like, I hadn't had any other tuition. I hadn't had any other. I just had this belief that I knew what sounded good. So I'm going to go through all these records, and I don't care if, as long as I've not heard it before, that means no one's used it. Hold it, you know, and I'll make the stuff. And we used to make these little demos, and then record them onto a mini disc, and then play the mini disc in front of everyone when we get on the bus to go to the next gig. So we immediately, like, it was like, it's deep, man, but it's like, just like having these friends, which I immediately saw as family because I was learning so much from them. Like, I was 21, and there was like Danny Ward, Chris Crooks, these percussionists who were, you know, touching 30. One of them was like mid-30s and that. I loved it. I loved being around people who were older because I wanted to learn, you know, all this stuff. And just immediately they were like teaching you about digging, about drumming, about jazz and all this stuff. And that was Sneak's background, because mine was just hip hop and metal. So that's all I had. There's a lot of attitude and not much else. Do you know what I mean? And that's the truth. That's the truth, you know. I mean, I had the raw ability, but it was all so raw because it was all so new, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the process like with the album? Did it take a while doing the first album, or was it like bosh bosh bosh?
Right. So what happened was, at that time, when I was talking about the eardrum night that was going on at Collider with the double bass and the drummer playing over the tunes and that, the drummer was a guy called James Ford, right? And James Ford now is possibly, dare I say, like the sort of George Martin of producers right now. He had like, I think, 3 of the Mercury Music nominated artists. He produced 3 of the albums. Like, this guy is just, and he had the talent then, but now he has become, if you see what I mean. And what it was like, oh, James is doing some production now. Why don't you go in with him? And between him and Sneak, there was just this massive level of trust, because they'd been already playing and doing all this. They were great friends, and I just slotted into that. You know, I just slotted into that. I just wanted to be around people who were fucking mad talented and just, you know, try and soak it up, and be myself, but just very, very eager. And yeah, there was this place in Disbury, and so there's a group called Simeon. He'd started this group called Simeon and was producing their album at the time. We actually did an EP first. Right, let me just rewind a little bit. Before the EP, there was a tune called Atomic Drop. It was like Central Heating. So Central Heating 2 was Grand Central's sequel to Central Heating 1, which was a big compilation showcase for all the artists on the label, yeah? We'd been touring and doing all this stuff and slotted in. It's like, right, Central Heating 2's coming up. Do you want to do a tune to go on that? We're like, fuck yeah, let's go, you know. How are we going to facilitate this? And it was James. He was like the sort of missing piece in terms of like, how can we get together and record something? But it was the same principle of like, we took. I don't think we had a demo. It wasn't like, oh, I've made this and you got to go and record it in a studio. We went with ideas, and I think that's how he wanted it as well, because he wanted to like co-produce. So it wasn't like, you know, we've got this idea, we go in and he kind of, you know, polishes it down and like takes off the raw edges and, you know, makes it like this lovely finished product. It was more like us just going in with like a load of audio Lego, and then we get into his room and we just start building. And, you know, it's like, oh, Dan, what are you into? Oh, I love arcade games, kung fu films, wrestling, comics, cartoons, you know, metal, and yeah, and Sneak is just like, right, well, I've got a double bass, I'm a grade 8 cellist. It's looking like, oh my god, you know. And yeah, we just set about like, right, let's throw a load of that in. And I ended up using like just various bits and bats, you know, various parts, and we literally just like, I wouldn't say cobbled because I don't think that's the right, like, we had the intention of making something killer, you know, so that's not cobbling, is it?
No. Did you, when you were making it, did you have conversations and kind of break it down in a way of like, okay, we're building this thing, but if we build it like this is how we can play it out?
Yeah. So you definitely, like, when we would go out and do the stuff on tour with Ray and Christian and whatnot, all I really had to use at that point was kind of scratch records. You know, they're the ones that have the sounds on, and they're the ones that have the sounds on with the bits that I need next to each other. It's not just, you know, so at that point, that was actually all I could really go and use, because that was all I really had access to that would be how could you say, like a producer's perspective but from behind turntables, so to be able to put something together. And that was always like I guess like a stipulation, we want to be able to do this. But I think at that time I was just so sucked into like the scratch pickles and seeing them scratch drums, mate. Do you know what I mean? Seeing them scratch drums, it just changed everything. Like, because I started to see almost all the sounds. I wanted to just do the same patterns that I would do when I would scratch drums and stuff like that. And then you just kind of find the more that you start listening to all these different sounds, some apply better to certain ones than to others. And it's just like a process of elimination until you find whatever it is that you're tweaking, it just sounds sick. Like, wow, it just sounds sick.
Yeah. So I think listening back to it, you can really hear the kind of Scratch Pickles influence, and particularly Mike, because it's got that like cinematic thing to it as well.
The thing about it is, like, I was into all of that shit when I was growing up from my own volition. Like, like the Jeff Love records and the Jaws themes and the string orchestration and everything, that's some of my oldest memories. There was a Japanese girl that came, unfortunately for her, to my school for a bit. And they were showing creature features of the Godzilla films. So me and a couple of the other nerds who were like bang into that, they were showing them on Channel 4 like late on a Friday night. I was obsessed with like clocking these. I fucking loved them. And then we befriended the Japanese girl and we'll get her to write the names of the Godzilla films in Japanese because we just thought it looked sick. But we had no idea how to do it. Do you know what I mean? And then you get bollocked for like ruining the lesson and fucking doing her head in, or I don't know, ruining it for her, or I don't know, whatever. But like all these things, what Mike did was like introduce like, nah, you could look at it like this. Like the way that he does everything is different. And it's like, and then so on that Wrists of Fury, I saw that, and he's like showing bits of Gamera films. I had no idea about Gamera, and I didn't know what that was, and a bit of an Ultraman film as well. And I'm like, what's going on? I love all these like creature features. Like, how come I haven't seen that stuff? Because they've just not had access to Japanese telly. Like they had, apart from like Battle of the Planets and all the the stuff that did come like direct from Japan that everybody knows in the UK. But monster films, I think Channel 4 just thought it was like a niche thing, so say they would just show it, but it became like a new obsession when that started.
So something else I wanted to ask you about on the first album, and this is kind of getting a bit granular, but I think it's a really interesting one, is like You Fly Me is like the biggest tune on the album, certainly downloads wise. And that's a tune that's not got any scratching on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for you in recording that, are you like... So it's kind of like Ringo knew to not go mental, right, when he was doing fills and stuff. Like he knew when he didn't need to be there. Were you like, this doesn't need me, or like what? Like how was it for you, or was it someone else's idea for you not to cut on it?
No, it wasn't that. It's just like I just brought the drums. The drums they are like, I remember when I heard them in the shop. It's just like this. Sometimes, when you're in the shop and you're like just buying, it's like being able to see into the future. Like that, like it's an instant love affair with just this bit of audio, whatever. And it's like, this is gonna be amazing, whatever this touches. And so with the album, this is kind of jumping forwards and backwards a little bit, but with the album, we ended up kind of writing some demos, and then I think, what did we do? It was like okay, like that's 70% Sneak, like that You Fly Me, that arrangement and everything. He got an. It was. I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but it was a love letter to his partner, and that. yeah, mate, let me do some scratches on it, yeah? It's going to go, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's why it's no cuts on it. You know, it's like,
Right.
it's like he wrote that, and I was like, my God, like these drums, this is it. And then it was like, recording a bit of triangle and some shakers and stuff. And I think, if I remember right, when he went in to record that, I wasn't there. I just already put the drums down, and it was like, right, okay. Because when you're doing an audio love letter to your partner, do you know what I mean? You don't want to fucking scrap, or whatever. There's a huge amount of respect between us, where it's like, maybe, knowing and knowing when something's not right, and having being able to swallow whatever it is, and be like, actually, I don't think I'm needed. All right, I don't think it's necessary. You know what's ace is when someone comes back and is like, nah, you are needed and you are going on it. That's cool, but for someone to come forward and just be like, I'm not so sure, it's cool, because it can start a transaction. Maybe someone's saying that because they feel uncomfortable, or maybe they feel really sure about it. But if someone comes back and says like, you know what, you are like, I can hear what you should be doing, or I think you should go here, or that can like instill a massive amount of confidence when you don't normally have it, So
Nice.
But the You Fly Me. So basically, after the Central Eating 2, we made that track. It was like, there's a go. This is what we're sounding like, It did pretty well. It was received, and then it was only a couple of months before, like, guys, do an EP. We're like, let's go. Let's just, and this whole time, mate, was like, what could I put it? It's just like fireworks going off. My life, all of a sudden, I'm not in Asda. I did this one thing, and now I'm going all over the place. And in my downtime, I'm going to recording studios, which are only bedrooms. You know what I mean? The bedrooms with some good kit in. But to me, I was like, it's like, fuck, man, I've done it. This is it. And we were offered we made the EP, which was another thing, just making stuff from the ground up. And at that point, we wanted to use the bass line that Sneak had first done, which is Fathead. The that one, that was something that he'd had up his sleeve. And he just saved it for this one time when it was just me in the room. It was brilliant. But we wanted to record that. We were like, this thing that we did, that's who we are. That's an important part of it. It's not just about sampling some beats and cutting and recording some bass on it. It's like, we do it all between us. Just let us do that as well, yeah? And Mark's like, for sure, go for it. You know what I mean? Go for it. And then we bring back this thing and it's like, whatever. And they fuck it. Mark was just like, Parker, this is dope, And that's what you want to hear.
I love every time you refer to, when you say about him saying Parker, I just imagine Jameson out of Spider-Man. Parker!
Yeah, Parker! Yeah, that's kind of like, oh, man. Yeah, Parker, put that bloody camera down! Or, I was holding a camcorder on the other stage at Glastonbury, like 17,000 people. I'm just having the time of my life like this, and we're actually doing a gig. But I'm just fucking filming, and he's like, Parker! Yeah. I've got some footage from that as well. I'm just going to get it converted. I've got these old,
nice.
I've got these old tapes. So that bollocking, to anyone who's listening, if you want to actually hear that, it did actually happen, and it'll probably be on YouTube in a few months. Yeah.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying Once a DJ. I wanted to create a product for the listeners to be able to support the show, and for the guests as a token of gratitude for being on. So I've teamed up with Sure Shot Shop to create some Once a DJ 45 RPM adapter clamps. These are my weapon of choice as a 45 adapter, as they add stability and grip to aid you in any setup. These are available for £25 each plus flat fee postage from onceadj.bigcartel.com. And if you'd like to see the other models you can buy and also customise, check out sureshotshop.com. If you're an avid collector of timeless music on vinyl but don't have the budget to fork out for those pricey originals, then look no further than Be With Records. From library music to yacht rock, jazz, hip-hop, disco and beyond, Be With lovingly reissue some of the coolest classics. All of their records are carefully remastered and cut to the highest standards to make sure the pressings are of peak audio quality and do justice to the music being released. And something else to note is that they don't do limited runs to drive up resale and hype. If the demand is there, they'll repress, as the focus is the music, not the profit margin. They have flat rate shipping and free UK shipping on orders over £60. And if you head to bewithrecords.com and use the discount code ONCEADJ, all one word, you'll get 10% off your order. So head to bewithrecords.com and level up those crates today. So at what point did you bring in the friend of yours from college? Oh, sorry, I forget his name. For doing the graphics.
Yeah. So Chris, right. This is another cool story. So Chris Drury, right. So before I did the DMC thing, I said I was at art college and that, and I met Chris there. We became best friends because he was on this corner table where I thought all the coolest lads were. They were all into hip hop. They all smoked weed, and that, you know, like fucking tick tick.
the bedstones are being cool when you're 17.
Oh, come on, you know. And yeah, what happened was I slowly started making my way over to their table and which did the heads in of the guys that were on the tables where I was originally, and I was sorry about that, but it's just the way it was. But me and Chris became best friends, and then when I went to retake the year, like Chris passed. Chris was actually just as bad as me in terms of, you know, the amount of fun time that he liked to have whilst at art college. You know, but his natural talent shone through. So when it came to crunch time, you know, he could adhere and just do great work and get through. Whereas I didn't. I just didn't. You know, I had issues with finishing things, and, you know, which, as I'm finding out, there's a bit more to it, you know, with the ADHD and all that. But anyway, I didn't finish. Chris went on to Salford Uni and ended up sharing a house with various people, one of whom was Sneak. Yeah?
Right.
Yeah. So me and Chris parted ways, and I missed him. I remember, like, just, yeah, it wasn't good because things weren't working right for me for a little bit, and I missed him and like all that whole crew from Runcorn, like, but Chris in particular. And yeah, like, so this one time we had a gig at the Jazz Cafe with Ray and Christian. I think this is 1998 or 1999. There was a City Life magazine, and Chris was with Sneak and a newsagent, and we were all in this City Life. It's a photo, and they opened this page, and he's like, "Fucking no way, that's Dan!" Like this, and Sneak's like, "What, you know him?" And he's like, "Yeah, I used to go to college with him." And Sneak's like, I'm in a band with him." And he's like, "No." And I'm like, yeah. So Sneak comes and tells me, he's like, "Do you know this guy, Chris Drury?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Chris." Like, and he's like, "I've been living with him for like however many years, and they've built this relationship, and they're busy mates and having a buzz, but in their way, it's fucking crazy." And it was this Jazz Cafe gig. I got to meet Sneak's brother Jez, and Chris came down with him, so I got to see Chris. So here I am going on for months at this guy, like how this thing is meant to be, and it was our destiny to be this two-piece band doing this thing. Chris turns up, and I'm like, this is weird as fuck. Like, this is mental. And it was a beautiful moment. I'm like, shit, man. Like, my old Bezzy mate, my new Bezzy mate, let's go, you know. And what transpired was, it turned out that, like, they had to move house. And they ended up getting this shared house, right, in a part of Manchester, yeah, Heaton, Mersey. And I went to visit them. And when I saw this house, it looked like something from Neighbours, mate. I don't know whether you remember the start of Neighbours, when they go down Ramsey Street and you've got like these massive, like, suburban dream houses. It looked like one of them, you know. So I was like, I need to be living here. I want to live here. I don't want to live like there's mice in the fucking gaff where I am. I want to come and live with, you know. And I went round there and opened the door and it's chaos. It's just chaos. Like maybe 9 or 10 peeps living there. And I'm like, fucking hell, man. How do I get in here? What, you know? And anyway, it was just crazy. Like, it was just like this moment of like that affirmation, you know, that like just instilling this belief that like this is what has to happen. And Chris was in like a bummy job, but he'd basically gone on to do art, to do design at uni, and had acquired all like, you know, quite a sick skill level. And I did end up moving in and getting a room, and Chris was doing a job and he didn't like it, and he would go to the pub on the way home and go and sit in this pub with a sketchbook and draw people in there, just like people watching, and just, but from his like perspective, like the way he draws now, he's always drawn that. I'd say warped. It is warped, you know, I guess like that's the best thing. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean warped as in the way he sees things and the way he sees people gives him the ability to be able to draw like he does. And anyway, I'm like, Chris, like, fuck your job, yeah? Like, we're gonna, like, what we're gonna do, like, you do some artwork for us. That was the 2-player EP. It's like, Chris, we need artwork. Here's your graphic design job. You know, like, you're gonna book for me and Sneak. He did, like, and then it was like, right, it's all about wrestling, audio wrestling and fingers. And because we'd already come up with the name, like, we're going to be called Fingathing. That was me, Mark, and Sneak in the back of a bus on one of these Rain Christian tours, just absolutely blitzed and brainstorming, because that's all it ever was. You know, you're just constantly making up stuff that you end up being the inspiration that you take home with you, and to sort of, you know, keep making music and whatnot. Like, yeah, going to be called Fingathing, and that was it. Chris is like, right, okay, well, I'll just draw these wrestlers then, and but they're going to be made out of fingers and shit like that. Like, oh, okay. And then he started doing them, and he would take them to Grand Central and show them, you know, and they're like, this is brilliant, keep going. Next thing, they're like, right, do some stickers, you know, and then when it came to like the album concepts and everything, it was like, Chris, just fuck your job off, yeah? We're going to go on tour. You're going to come with us. I don't know how we're going to do it, but you're going to come. So there's going to be drawings while we're playing. Do you know what I mean? And that was it. That was what we kind of intended to do. So I think it was just with me sort of having this level of belief, or like, and just infecting Chris with it as well, you know, to the point where he just sacked it off, and we just, and it was mad. It was mad, because at the same time, like, or like about 6 months after, I got like the first sort of Gorillaz promo, and they're talking about this cartoon band. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck, man? That's our shit. Like, where the fuck's, who's this? Where, you know? And they I remember reading the promo sheet. I got the single and reading the promo sheet for it, and they'd already created the characters. So there was no talk of like, because they kept it all secret for a few years, you know, and it was just talking about these kind of cartoon band members. Like, fuck's sake, man. Did my head in. But anyway, we just carried on. It was like, you know, we're on our own plane, and once we there was a point actually after doing the first album, like, and where it was like, how are we going to tour this? How are we going to do it? And it was like, right, we're going to have a screen. You know, you're going to make these visuals, and we're going to have them going whilst we're playing. We'll go either side of the screen, but we're practically facing each other, or like, you know. Yeah, and it's like, you know, you'll get paid. We'll all get paid the same amount. Everything, you know. That's how we'll do it.
Yeah, and you did 3 albums, didn't you, in total?
Yeah, did 3 albums. That was like part of the contract. We did like numerous EPs and bits and bats, but as part of the Grand Central thing, after we'd done that first EP, It was like, sign a 3-album deal. And me and Sneak were that naive, yeah. Sneak was like, oh, I'm a member of the Musicians Union. It's like, oh, sick. He's like, they've got a lawyer. Oh, sick. So we'll send him the contract and he can say, like, you know, whether it's kosher or, you know, whatever. So we did. It's like, great. And Sneak was like, all you got to do is join the Musicians Union. I'm like, I'd love to be part of the Musicians Union anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, there again, it's like that affirmation, like, you know, that I think I needed or wanted so much, but didn't say. And yeah, that it came back. The lawyer's like, yeah, it's all legally binding and all kind of above board. He didn't say it's not a great deal, that, guys, or anything like that. It's just like there's nothing illegal on there.
No. Was it not as good as it could have been then, do you think? Are you happy to, like, it depends if you're happy to talk about that or not.
So, I mean, we paid a month's rent with the first payment we got, you know. We paid a month's rent each for the first album. I don't know whether it's about, like, what's fair or what's unfair or any of that stuff, or people might, like, see that as, like, a negative thing. What I would do is just flip that and say, like, I've been given the chance of a lifetime, you know, and that for me was priceless, and I didn't actually care the money and all that. We were, like, doing so many gigs. I was earning more money than I'd ever earned in my entire life. I thought I was, you know, set, and in that sense, yeah, but it wasn't that great. But Grand Central was a small label, and the punt they were taking on us, like, I knew the music that we were delivering was not your standard listening, and that would take a lot of bravery and a lot of confidence from, like, anyone holding a purse. You know what I mean? And being part of a business, and anyway, but yeah, so that's what happened. And we would, anyway, to go back to the naivety, we did, like, the first Snow Bombing, which is this big, like, festival. It happened in 2000, and it was like Fingathing launching the main event, this album and whatnot. And there's this guy, Steve Smith, who put on Deep Percussion Festival and all this huge stuff. Like, he basically really knows his onions about anything like that. And we were like, yeah, we've got an option. Like, this album's coming out, and then we can decide whether we want to do another album with them or not. And he just started laughing, and he's like, you know, like, I think it's them that have got the option, guys. I think it's them, you know. But we were just, you know what I mean? We were just, like, so, just plucked out of whatever and just thrust right into this situation. You know, like being on a roller coaster that's already moving or something. I don't know, it's hard to, or, you know, and all we did was just, like, go for it. And in every sense, anything that we were asked to do or whatever, we just really, like, it was everything at that time. Yeah.
Was it a consistent schedule then over those 3 albums? Like, were you touring as much and stuff and recording as much? And did the energy and the enjoyment stay throughout?
Yeah, but, like, so I mean, to be really, I mean, we were enjoying ourselves a lot, you know, every day, you know. So when we came home from touring, we just came home with half the rider and everything else that we needed, you know, and we would just live pretty much at home, the life that we were doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like, I'm. So we're in that shared house, right? We're in that shared house, and all of a sudden it's like, right, you've got a record deal, you've got this. What would you like to do with it? You know, right? I need this. I want an MPC. I want DJ Noise. I want you to get in touch with him. I want to do a track with Noise. You know, all this lot. I'd already been doing gigs with Noise and met his manager, Mick Mottershead, who was the guy who put Fresh 97 on.
Yeah.
So all these crazy things are happening. All of a sudden, like, I'm doing this thing where I've got this outsider's view of a festival and what it's like as a punter going, and then a year and a half later, I've got an insider's view of what it is, and it's a very different, very, very different thing. And almost in a sense, that innocence is, once you lose that, of the mystique of like gigs, music, the way that you listen to music over all that time. So, you know, I suppose like when you start turning your head to like making stuff and creating, there has to be a level of scrutiny towards everything that has come before it, and music that I started to listen to music differently. I started to listen to hip hop differently, everything, because I was just examining it and ripping it apart and teaching myself to and listening to all different types of music all together back to back, and to as like a almost trying to condition myself to like being more open-minded than what I thought I needed to, you know. So I would, you know, like learn that thing about Sneak being into like the jazz and funk and soul and all that. I'm metal and hip hop, yeah, and it's like there ain't like the hip hop, of course, with sampling and all the funk, soul and jazz, like yeah, but I just didn't have access to those records. I wasn't listening to that stuff. I heard it via the means of hip hop music, which is sampling, you know. But from the outset, I just was just like a sponge, everything, and living that life, being on tour all the time, being surrounded by people who are not only in bands making music themselves, all different types of stuff, percussionists, listening to, you know, three guys chanting in a fucking forest somewhere and nodding his head, and you know, like, what are you listening to? Like, put it on. I'm like, what the fucking hell, you know, wow, you know. And I'm like, that's amazing, like that you buzz off that, you know. And it's like, what is, you know, and just having that inquisitive nature with everything and everyone at all that time, and like and also like, you know, hadn't even been making tunes that long, you know, so it was all just this but we're all in the same house, we're all under one roof, you know, with all these other crazy dudes, like different creatives, lovely people, but just having like a pretty lawless, and just having incredible experiences, and everything just fed right back into the music. And and as soon as I move in, I'm bringing the PlayStation, the chip PlayStation, with everything, every game under the sun that you can think of, and like wrestling, and just far too many video games, in fact, you know. But the wall of videos would go floor to ceiling, you know.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Did you at any time kind of feel like it was too much, and like it would have been like healthy to just step out of it for a few weeks every once in a while?
No, not at all. No, not even for 1 second. Like, it was kind of like I felt like I'd found my tribe, you know, at that time. Like, it wasn't just Chris and Sneak. Once I moved into that house, it was Droid and Bong and Mike and just like, and Tim, like these other peeps.
So here's one for you then. So I DJ'd with a band for a bit. It was as much as anything, it was for the social aspects, and I'd just like scratch on, I don't know, 3 tunes and fire off a few samples. Nothing too crazy, but with that, I think for me, I think of scratching as more of like a free-form instrument. And what I struggled with is, because we'd go and gig and stuff like that, and it's just like rehearsing and doing the same thing every time. I really struggled with. Like, how were you with that? Because you got to be tight when you're performing at these festivals and things. Like, did you have room to play around, or were you happy to just stick to the exact sort of blueprint?
I still have and never have done the same thing, the same consecutively. Like, any time anyone's seen Fingathing or anything, I think that's the thing about routines. I don't use that word, because like, that's something where it's like this, and it then has to fit to that parameter, and I have trouble up here with that. I'm like, it's just going. That's all I can say. It's just going, and I'm there. I am there. I'm just probably not where you expect me to be. Like, yeah. I like with the Fingathing stuff, and that's why I love playing with Snake. I love, you know, it's just this. like, and that jazz thing, it's like that freedom, and like, I just have great difficulty with doing the same thing, the same, after it. And so even like all the cuts and everything, as long as I used the samples that I was asked to use, I would generally do something different, and that would not be for the, like, I wouldn't be able to do it the same if I tried, if you see what I mean. And so when it came down to recording like solos and stuff like that with the Fingathing stuff, a lot of it would just be sit there and I would just keep going. It wasn't like, oh right, you've got 16 bars. Okay, I've been working on it for 3 weeks. Go. None of that. It's just like, just let me go for a bit. I'll just go, and then we'd go back and pick certain bits, like, fucking hell, what you did there is really good. I'm like, okay, let's go, record, I'll do that again, no problem.
So with Fingathing then, what was it that stopped you from doing the fourth album? Was it because it was the end of the contract, or was there other opportunities that had come up?
So there's some massive in the times, so in between those albums, huge changes were going down in Grand Central behind the scenes, and I am comfortable, and I do want to talk about all this actually. So we're part of this thing, and we're making real noise. The albums were getting 8 out of 10 in NME. For them, that's a big deal. So we were being received really well. The opportunities were all still coming. Ray and Christian, Mark had this great play. Ray and Christian was this different thing, which was actually bigger. It was bigger, he's got this label as well. Money, pressures, whatever, these things, I can't imagine. I can't, because I have anxiety. I fucking would go ballistic over something being moved. Or, and the idea of having a business and being able to juggle these things and have people's lives and responsibilities like that, I can't, but I can imagine how difficult that would get if things start going wrong or not going how you wanted them to go. And these just changes were happening at Grand Central. It was like, I don't know, it was just like, Mark ended up moving down to London because that was where I think he needed to be, but the business and everything was in Manchester, and the changes that came after that just didn't work for the label that well, and subsequently, because they didn't work for the label that well, I don't think they really worked for the artists that well, or we started to see things. We developed deep relationships with all the people that worked at that label, and see, everybody's just working really hard, and I don't know, things, different people coming into place, and then just these changes happening. And when the changes sort of happened, they just, I don't know, there was just stuff happening for the negative rather than for the positive. So it was just a little bit something's not quite right. Nothing would ever get said, and we don't know. We're just artists that pop in there, and we just hanging out there because we were these just naughty kids who everyone lets get away with whatever, and we just hang out and make people laugh, and just. Everything was jovial, whereas as part of a business, it's a very different thing. And to be dead honest, I wanted to be on Ninja Tune. I wanted to release music on other labels. I wanted to kind of I can't remember. I just wanted to be able to do stuff. Yeah, I wanted to be on Ninja, and it was a lot to do with Scruff actually, and seeing how Scruff was going down, and what it was Mr. Scruff's manager was this guy Gary, and it was right, here's what we're gonna do. Yeah, we're gonna go and tap this guy up, and we're gonna say, we want you to manage us. We want to kind of do what Scruff is doing, and we think we're capable. Are you up for it? That was the thing. Can you hear a scratchy noise?
Is that the dog again?
It's a fucking dog trying to get in, man. All right, so yeah, so what happened was this is all pivotal stuff, right? And this is during Superhero Music,
Oh, right,
the
okay.
second album. We go to this guy and we're like, right, we want what Scruff. We think we're as good as Scruff, and we want to do that. Can you facilitate that? And he's like, right, come, we'll meet. This guy, and it's just like this guy's just fucking. Scruff's just huge, and he's with Ninja. Grand Central, something's going wrong. It's not going right. It's like I hate to say it, but you would sort of be like, shit, man. It's like it's. I don't know whether it's gonna fold or whatever, but like it's like, oh, it's a sinking ship. Yeah, we need to get out. We need to just sort out our own future. And I'm like, I won't be on fucking Ninja Tune. That's where we're going next. And yeah, Scruff was on Ninja. This guy was managing Scruff. It's like, right, do the math. Let's go see that guy. And he was brilliant, actually. Gary was like, yes, I think I can do something with you, and I'm willing to take it on. I'm like, really? All right, and that's when things really started going bonkers. Like, we shook hands, and it was like the new chapter had started, what was going to come to us next via like wanting the world or whatever, but Grand Central's a sinking ship. Okay, we'll just fucking hop onto another one. And we had Superhero Music at the time. The first thing Gary did was like, I'm going to bring this guy from Coda Agency to meet you called Doug. And Doug travelled up. I'm like, fucking hell, man, he's travelling up from London to see us in Manchester. That's wicked. And he came up and we met and chatted. And next thing, we're on Coda. And then I tell Gary the idea about how we want Chris doing the visuals. We want to go out. When we go out on the road, we're like this. We have a screen. We take the screen everywhere. He's like, right, writes it all down. Doug, this is what they want to do. Right, you need to do the artwork. Chris, how do you, so learn whatever you need to do to make these animations, these little bits, put it together, have it at home so you can do it. We've got the music, and we're going out and playing that stuff. And then this one time we get a call, and it's like, right, it was the Fringe Festival. This is 2002, and it's like, right, DJ Shadow is doing a gig in Edinburgh for the Fringe in a warehouse, and Anti-Pop Consortium was supposed to be supporting, and they can't make it. Are you guys up for it? 5,000 people. I don't know, no, 3,000 maybe in this fucking like hangar. Like, yeah, let's go. This is it. This is the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the fucking. Yeah. Mate, it was just like, bear in mind, this guy to me was the pinnacle. He was what I saw as like that. That's how I want to be. That's how that I want to be like that. And we went up, and Chris couldn't come. They couldn't facilitate visuals for us. They were like, all you're going to be able to do is have a turntable and the bass, And I had a mini disc player, I think, with some of the backing for some of the tracks, but we'd already got the new album, so we got the new album tunes, Scrap, which was way more heavily. I mean, we were on it, and we did it, and we went fucking nuts. I mean, we couldn't believe it because we're all doing all this stuff for the first time.
Is that with like the more drum and bassy sort of stuff that you did?
It was like it was kind of the shuffled stuff. So yeah, like like Black Sabbath, like Doctor Who, whatever. That, and then we're doing like Head to Head, Big Monsters Crush Cities, Superhero Music, fucking bangers that people had never heard, and they were fucking, they were responding in kind, and it was just like, it was a real moment. And we were back in the dressing room, massive grins on our faces, sweating corpses, a knock at the door, yeah? And it's Shadow, with 2 t-shirts, and he's just like, I just brought these for you. They're just like the tour shirts that I'm going with at the moment. I just wanted to say, like, I thought that was brilliant. I've actually only ever seen something like that once before, and it's a guy, Miles from Breakestra, with Cut Chemist, because Miles plays double bass, and Cut Chemist was like cutting a beat, and he's like, it was just a freestyle, and I've never heard anyone arrange a song and do it like a song. And Josh, like, yeah, I know, you know. And I remember I had this Two Sisters record down on the floor, right? I had some records pulled out. There's this old electro record, Two Sisters Summit. And he's there and he's like, oh, I see you got Two Sisters, 1984, da-da-da, on the da-da-da-da label, like this, like a catalogue.
Like someone out of You Bet.
Like someone out of You Bet, mate. It was fucking crazy. And it was actually, and I didn't want to do his head in, but it wasn't that. It was actually on a French label. It wasn't the American release that he thought, but I didn't want to be like, no, actually you got it wrong.
Yeah.
Who would do that? I just didn't say anything. I'm like, yeah, Two Sisters, you know, like this. Anyway, we saw him, and it was just this pivotal moment. I mean, mate, I can't, like, one of the best moments of my entire life. And subsequently what happened was like, Shadow really buzzed off it. He's got his UK tour for Private Press coming up. Do you want to support him on the whole tour? You know, I'm like, yes. And it's him, Beans from Anti-Pop Consortium, and RJD2.
Wow.
Who've just brought out Dead Ringer. You know, next thing, we're in, you know, Manchester Academy, sold out, you know, little old us, you know, watching RJD2, chilling out with Beans, and then on the odd occasion bumping into Shadow and having like a few moments to just kind of talk. And it was just, mate, like, and like, his manager was fucking horrible to us, yeah, this dude. I'm not going to go, but he's just like, RJ was like befriended, and he's like, do you want to come on the bus? Do you want to come on the tour bus and play some FIFA? Like, sick, really? Of course we do. And by the way, I'm mint at FIFA, I'm going to kick your ass, you know, like, so go up, get that. And his manager comes up, like, after like 5 minutes, manager goes, guys, sorry, but it's crew only on the bus, yeah? Like, and he's like, we're just going to play some games. You're not going, you know, and he's like, yeah, but, you know, rules are rules. I'm afraid I just can't have it. You're going to have to leave, guys. You know, like this. And like, literally, like, it was, what a fucking asshole. Like, just, you know, just like, this, we were, you know what I mean? Like, not even that old, and just like, I don't know, just lording it like that and just being like, oh, you can't be on it. He wasn't, like, Josh was up at the other end of the bus. You know what I mean? We weren't doing anyone's head in. And he just had to be like that, and he had to do that, you know. And then every time that we saw him, it's just like, yeah, you're that guy. That's how you do things. Do you know what I mean? And fuck me off, that did. Anyway, but yeah, like Josh. So we go round, and at times we get talking, and he'd be like, "How did you record?" You know, like, "Oh, what MPC you got?" You know, like, "How did you record certain bits?" You know. And I was like, yeah, I've got an MPC 60, and would MIDI it up and bounce off the tracks separately. And I was like, because didn't you put like 2 together and like use, you know, like, and do the programming separately? Or like, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, but I like the way you did it and all that, you know, like, I'm like,
it's not bad, is it, getting your juice from Shadow?
So that affirmation, yeah, that kind of stuff where I really did, it's like I genuinely, like that thing about imposter syndrome or feeling like I have the right to be there. I've always had that, always, my entire life, when I go in places, and I don't know, I would always feel like alone. But then to have an occasion where just with certain people say something like that, after that, it was like that validation. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, and that whole tour, that's what it did. It kind of validated us as being something that, like, nah, we are doing it. You know, we are, you know, yeah. Yeah. Even though record sales and all that and the way things were, you know, we went over to Russia one time, and, you know, we got told that we were selling big in Russia. And we went over, and the promoter, this guy, his name was Boris, and And he's like, yeah, guys, you sell big here. You sold like 20 copies. Wow. 20 copies, not really having, like somebody says you're selling well or whatever, not having that perspective, all right, well, only 500 copies were pressed. There was no streaming, there was no sales, it was just like anything we got given, we gave it people. You get promos or you get copies. I don't even have that much fast stuff. I've just given it to people, because it just, I don't know, like easy come, easy go.
It's exciting though, isn't it?
That's all it was, mate. The whole thing is just pure energy, adrenaline, for good or for bad. It was just that whole period, and all I did was just embrace it all. I just got tatered 24/7 the whole time, and which ultimately, didn't do us any favours,
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying Once a DJ. I wanted to create a product for the listeners to be able to support the show and for the guests as a token of gratitude for being on. So I've teamed up with Sure Shot Shop to create some Once a DJ 45 RPM adapter clamps. These are my weapon of choice as a 45 adapter, as they add stability and grip to aid you in any setup. These are available for £25 each plus flat fee postage from onceadj.bigcartel.com. And if you'd like to see the other models you can buy and also customise, check out sureshotshop.com. If you're an avid collector of timeless music on vinyl but don't have the budget to fork out for those pricey originals, then look no further than Be With Records. From library music to yacht rock, jazz, hip hop, disco and beyond, Be With lovingly reissue some of the coolest classics. All of their records are carefully remastered and cut to the highest standards to make sure the pressings are of peak audio quality and do justice to the music being released. And something else to note is that they don't do limited runs to drive up resale and hype. If the demand is there, they'll repress, as the focus is the music, not the profit margin. They have flat rate shipping and free UK shipping on orders over £60. And if you head to bewithrecords.com and use the discount code ONCEADJ, all one word, you'll get 10% off your order. So head to bewithrecords.com and level up those crates today. So what was it then that kind of caused the wheels to fall off? I'm sorry, I'm saying that loaded. I don't know how it kind of tied up in the end, but because you said that there's been ups and downs, but it sounds like so far, just aside from Shadow's manager being a bit funny, that's the only real thing, I guess, so far.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what happened was the relationship that we had with Gary that we were building was it was to look to the future and have a more long-term approach. Now, bear in mind, I'd been given validation by somebody who it's like on the front, just the Jimi Hendrix of sampling. Sure. That's what he was quoted as. The Enemy said that, but it's we got 8 out of 10 out of the Enemy. If they say he's the Jimi Hendrix of sampling, right, let's, I just started sampling more and more, heavier and heavier. Yeah, more samples. And wanting to be on Ninja at this time, right? And even there's other people, I know other artists at this time would have been feeling this, but there was a shift in the industry where all of a sudden, if you used samples, it was a much different game because people were the lawsuits were coming thick and fast. Yeah, and people, all of a sudden, it's you could make the best music ever as it got samples in it, and that's how it started to come. That's how the questions were coming, and it's don't fucking, what you saying, that I can't sample, Yeah. And so we wrote a body of music, which was the next, and with the intention of this music being on Ninja Tune, and we met Book 65 at the Leeds and Reading Carlin, whatever you call it, festival, and got on swimmingly. It turned out that he'd seen the DMC, and he's yeah, I used to watch, I'm no way, you're Book 65. And he did a tune over, he did Wicked and Weird over No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age. And I was just like, that's one of the most incredible things, and how brave, you know, like just that here's someone else who's kind of loves different types of shit, but we'll throw it together in a sort of hip hop capacity. And anyway, yeah, we ended up doing a tune, which was like ultra heavy. It's like, okay. And then these other ones where I was sampling more and more stuff, and just the amount of samples that I used like tripled, and I was starting to use quite a lot on superhero music and some other bits. And we ended up with this body of stuff and going on a tour. And the idea was to get onto SJM as the new promoter, so that we could go bigger than just clubs. It would be more like academies and stuff like that. And Ninja Tune would come and see this show, and then they'd want the album, you know. And the idea was to like grow Fingathing, so we came up with Fingathing and the Fiends, which was like percussionists, because I was buzzing off the Incredible Bongo Band, and I thought, wouldn't that be sick to have a live version of that, but sort of Fingathing. And also, and that was Chris, like the original percussionist that would listen to all the wacky sounds from the jungle or whatever, or like, you know, proper raw percussion from way back, tribal stuff. And Steve Brown, this other ultra talented dude, playing keys and that. All my friends basically, and our friends, Ricky and Matt on congas. And it's like, right, for a laugh, we're going to do Apache. We're going to do a version of Apache. And but I'm going to have a big scratch solo in the middle and basically bring it up to date, so that we could do that live with all of our other tunes. Okay, great. And we had this show at the ICA, and it was for a laugh. It was kind of like, that was not what I wanted. It's like all this stuff that had the ultra heavy samples. That was what I wanted our future, or my vision for at least where I would fit in and what I would bring to the table, aside from, you know, all of Sneak stuff as well. And they came to the ICA gig in London, and we did all the stuff, and then, you know, Gary, we were like, right, okay, what's the crack? You know, they were like, well, yeah, I don't think they're going to take the stuff, you know, that's got all the samples, but they love Apache, you know. And I was like, are you fucking kidding? You know, like I did, and that was a very bitter pill for me to swallow at the time. What transcended over the next few months was like a breakdown of like the stuff that we'd made. Was like Ninja had agreed to release the Nebula album in America and Canada, because Grand Central didn't have distribution.
Yeah.
So it was, I already felt like we'd got a foot in the door. Do you know what I mean? I was like, fuck, man, it's happening, you know. And Gary was like, look, you know, have you got some other ways of making these tunes? You know, no, no, because I've just spent, you know, all of my waking time obsessing over sound bites of stuff from elsewhere. I don't play keys. I don't do this. I don't. Just the turntables and records, mate, you know, and videos and games, and that's where I get my sounds from. And it actually crushed me, to be honest. It created like this massive shift where I lost all of my confidence and belief slowly, and it just took all the fun and everything out of all that excitement, and not like all that energy that was it was just like, it just started to fizzle out. And so we're smoking every single day, all day, you know, and everything else, and, you know, and I guess I'm still growing up, you know, and being told things that I didn't like to hear, and I'd grown like quite the ego, you know, from having these experiences and doing all this great stuff, and, you know, being that guy, you know, along with Sneak and Chris and everything. I had all this belief, and it was like a chink in the armor, or whatever they call it, you know, like just like the start of a crack. It just started getting a bit bigger, and I think it was my confidence, to be honest. It was because I think I didn't believe that I could make it in any other way than using samples.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay. And Gary's like, that it don't have to be the end. Like, you can release the music yourself. Do it yourself. I'm like, okay, great. How do we do that? We're still touring. We'll just press up 1,000 CDs and, go and sell them while you're doing a tour. Sell the T-shirts and all the stuff, because we had all the imagery and everything. And that's what we did, and we were making these mixtapes and stuff that we were kind of peddling. But they weren't coming out on a label or anything. We were just selling them as part of the shop. But it was like, in my heart of hearts, I wanted to be on Ninja. The reason we couldn't get on Ninja is because they want Apache. They put Apache out on a 7. But I was, this is just me. Being, honest, that like, it just didn't. I wanted them to put the other shit out. Do you know what I mean? I just didn't. It's kind of. I think I'd lost it. Because I'd lost like a bit of belief in myself and everything. Right, and over this whole period while we're touring and stuff, we're accruing a debt. Yeah, to Gary's company, because the way that they did things, they had this old office of people. I'm a kid who has come from having nothing, and we're doing this thing, and all of a sudden I've got a manager, and a management company. Okay, they can just take care of everything. I'm going to carry on doing this thing. Just give me a shout when I'm needed, whatever. So we're left off to doing our own devices, which was that and there, and then they're all doing the work, and we're accruing this debt. And the account was at one point having, so much money going through per year, and then it just was coming down and down and down and down, and the new music wasn't coming. Gary had this faith that, because I was saying, or we were saying rather, that like, it's on its way. We're doing the music, it's coming, but it wasn't right. And it's like, we've still got all that shit. We still listen back to it, and it's got some incredible elements and all these bits. And like, it's kind of like going back and looking at these like a half-finished painting, like a half-finished, brilliant painting. So you see a bit of it, it's like, wow, look at that, but where's the rest? It's kind of like that, and just hearing these things, and yeah, I don't know what it was. I was like, it was like, if I can't sample, I can't be who I want to be. And that, it was like, it started to rot or something inside me. And I don't think I became, or was looking at making music the same. I actually had my eyes on, so the debt that we started building up was so big that we started getting a bit scared.
Yeah.
Like, we were like, how are we going to pay this off? So we're all just living, we're still living together, but we're all a bit depressed because it wasn't going how we wanted it to go. And all of a sudden, it wasn't like you're going out and doing gigs and making this money. It's just like, no, there's this big ass debt. Which would go up and down as well. Everything, our time with Gary was built on a handshake. So yeah, what I did was I was a bit like, right, I think I'm just gonna say I want some time off, and that's what I did. There was another guy, an MC, who had a project called The Real Dolls, and he was like, would you produce the Real Dolls album? He asked me to be in the Real Dolls, and bless him. And I really wanted to be that, But like, on the first day of going to play with the band, he didn't even tell them. He didn't tell them. He's just like, oh yeah, there's a new band member coming, and he's going to produce the shit. The two lads who was in the room, they were doing it. He didn't tell me this. He didn't tell me this at the time, but I walked into a fucking shitstorm. Very small shitstorm at the time, but like, just something which was just so confusing from the very first moment. And I told Gary, like, I'm going to go and do this thing. I need some time off Fingathing. To be really honest, the music, it's there, but it ain't right. It's not. We had the equivalent of an album that we'd sent to Ninja Tune, but it was like it was half. It just had this thing. It had this bit missing, which was the magic, I guess, or whatever, the inexplicable thing. But it was the stuff. I'd lost faith. I'd lost faith not only in like the future. It wasn't what I had perceived and what I wanted so much for it to be. It wasn't going to be that, and I didn't know what the other thing was. All I knew that was I had to get out of this debt. Yeah. So I just said to Gary, like, look, I need some time off. You know, need a year out. I'm going to go and do this other thing, and then I'm going to come back fresh, and we'll do the Fingathing stuff, and we'll honour all that, and it'll all be cool. And it just never happened, you know. So effectively what happened was we just cut ties. They came to see the Real Dolls thing because I'd intended to kind of carry on and have them do the Real Dolls thing, because I saw that as like my ego. Even though I'd lost faith in the sampling, my ego was still there, so I believed I could produce an album, even though I'd never done that. You know, I had no fucking idea. Just made beats and that, you know. But said I could do it, and it was a shame. And Sneak ended up moving to Berlin. That was when he moved. It must have been, for me to come home one day and say, look, I need some time out from Fingathing, must have been fucking heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
Like, I actually, not only did I like sort of like call a time out on it, it was like calling a time out on our friendship, and that fucked me.
Yeah.
Like Chris as well, and like Sneak, and like, so I had a long-standing girlfriend who was like, you know, also like a best friend, broke from that as well, thinking that everything that I was doing was for the right reasons. Like I needed to go out on my own and find my own way. Not a good idea, man. And that is effectively Sneak. I remember them loading up the car, and he's like, Dan, I'm going to move to Berlin with Lena. You know, like they got married, and she didn't really rate Manchester. It's a bit too cold, you know, for her. She was from Kuala Lumpur originally. They'd met in Kuala Lumpur, but she wanted to go to Berlin, you know. And Sneak, I guess, you know, it was like that moment, the opportunity had knocked, you know, it had come. So it wasn't like Lena wouldn't be taking him away from anything anymore. It was like, now we can go. So I think she made it all right with him, you know, where he was all right with it, but we were just fucking heartbroken. And I just went and moved into a flat on my own, thinking that me breaking off from everyone was the, you know, the best thing. And unfortunately, like, it was like that started to become like the hardest time of my life, you know. For the next 3 years, I'd got into this relationship, a long distance relationship with someone that it was so toxic, mate. And but at that point, like, that was kind of something that to me, that was still quite a thrill, you know, that kind of all of that shit. I really went for it. That's all I could really say. And yeah, I just started to, like, it was just like this kind of self-deterioration, and I started to distance myself from everybody, you know, and like I'd broken up with this kind of like you know, like girlfriend, long-time girlfriend, and then my best friends who I'd literally become family with. It had all broken, it had all ended, and then it was just me, you know. Yeah.
Wow. So what did that 3 years consist of then?
It consisted of me just taking loads and loads and loads and loads of drugs. After receiving the news that like sampling was an issue, I stopped scratching, and at that time, like cutting and everything, it was like I'd found, like, you know, it was weird, like I guess with the Fingathing, you know, experience, it was like I'd found everything, you know. But then just at the same time, there became a point where it's just that was no longer the case, and it was like the fallout or whatever you want to call it. Like Chris was in a relationship and wasn't too far away, and Sneak was okay and building this new life, and I was just in this flat, and it was kind of like my own choices and the things that I'd done, I only had myself to kind of talk it through with, which when I didn't want to listen really. So so it was just like more and more, kind of taking drugs and like on my own, and like pretending that everything was all right. So I'd go out and still do like the Real Doll stuff and make like this kind of different music with some other people, but from the outset that was jarred from the outset. So it was just like a sort of, unfortunately, a lot of things kind of going wrong or just not going right, and I'd just come from that. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like just a feeling of being lost, but there was a how could you say, like, I was still gigging, and I started, like, I was going and doing a lot of stuff in Hungary, because that's like where like this relationship, the girl who was seeing like in this long-term relationship with, and she was a DJ as well and kind of knew promoters and stuff, and so, and then I met these other guys that did Fingathing gigs, but then would go out and like spend time with them and go digging with them and like get these Hungarian breaks and all this stuff and all this shit. And I never lost my like passion for it. It was just like losing the outlet, it was like losing the outlet for it. Or did I? Because then like other people would just say, oh no, you just record the tracks, make your own CD and pedal it yourself and go and do these things. But I was just incapable of all of that,
I think as well with doing something like that, something that you've repeatedly talked about is getting that affirmation. And I don't think self-releasing would necessarily tick those same boxes for you. That's not like, that's you going, I think I'm all right. That's not someone putting their hand around you and going, you're all right, I'm going to put this out.
Yeah. So I guess like a loss of confidence and a loss of faith, and like this relationship that I was in was so toxic, right? That at first it was just like a fucking the wildest ride that I could ever like imagine, because I wanted to kind of like experience it, I guess, but it was actually like I'm a nice guy and I'm very sensitive, and like stuff happened to me that I guess, so I'm going through this experience where I'm just taking shitloads of drugs and I'm a bit lost. I go through this experience where my self-esteem, I actually started to receive some of the treatment that maybe I'd been dishing out through my 20s, via just being egotistical and, going around and just doing, whatever, and just thinking that that's okay, and it isn't, and when that's, and when that came back to me in the form of a relationship via someone who was all too comfortable with that shit, like so comfortable, that it just crushed me. It crushed me. Like I over those years, like I self-destructed, I self-decimated, and I was up for it. I was actually up for it. So I was just continuing. There was no like what I'm doing is bad. I had like this little tiny bit at the bottom of my mind that knew that what I was doing was not right and it wasn't good for me. But also, like, I also had this element where I was actually quite ashamed of what I was doing, so I wanted to keep it all really secret, so I didn't tell anyone, and so I'm doing this stuff which is really bad, and then I'm in a relationship which is really bad, and actually taking like some really vital parts of yourself, of who you are as a person, like stripping that down to nothing actually, and yeah, that's the way it went, mate. I was really close to it not going well.
I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do a legendary first time ever third recording.
All right, I'm all right with that.
Basically, I had to go off and meet someone, so we stopped the recording there. But there's so much more to get into that I thought it best to split this into a three-parter. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard, and stay tuned for the final instalment of the Peter Parker story. Until then, see ya. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Once a DJ. If you'd like to support the show, then head to onceadj.com/support to find out how you can help. If you'd like to get in touch with any feedback or suggestions, email onceadjpodcast@gmail.com. Once a DJ is produced by the good people at Remote Control. If you'd like to find out more about working with them, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk.
That was nice.